Lions just recovered a fumble.
Bits of wisdom.
It's Harry Houdini, I'm pretty sure.
That's when it kind of becomes Home Improvement After Dark.
I guess that leaves us at the question of the week.
Very good. I don't know if you noticed, Jordan, but a really cool aerial shot of the table. Reasonably funny.
User review.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Home and podcast time.
That's right, a company that is legally binding with Binford Tools is proud to present a Home Improvement Podcast. My name is Adam, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jordan. Jordan, February, we're in it, baby.
Were we in it last time or no? I don't remember.
I guess we were.
But now is when you recognize it. You always wait till the 10th of February to recognize the month, right?
That's when my month starts. I go with shorter, and it's a leap year and things like that. So,
so it all just makes sense.
Yeah, time.
How you doing on this Friday morning?
I'm doing fine. Yeah, it's the reason I was referencing the February is it's cold. It's cold up here in Illinois. Something that you don't really have to face ever since you kind of ran away from your Midwestern roots and hit out in the Orlando area. What's the weather like down there?
Right now it is about 70 and there's no clouds.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop you right there. You're kind of like Will Smith in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You got in one little fight and your mom got scared and then she sent you to suburban Orlando.
I can tell you one thing. My mom definitely didn't send me here.
She didn't want you to move down there.
No, and I don't think I got in a fight either.
Well,
maybe with you.
Just one little fight. I think we've
had our tiffs.
Oh, sure, certainly, mostly home improvement related.
Yeah, we usually have a lot of contention over certain plot points and
mostly just edits.
things that you want. I want to keep in and you want to take out,
and you want to. Yeah, exactly.
They seem to be on the rise the last couple episodes. So.
Yeah, well, we're just trying to make a good product for folks. We've been talking a little bit about states and, kind of me remaining true to my Midwestern roots and you sort of perhaps being a coward and running away to a nicer, safer place, which kind of relates to what we want to talk about here at the beginning. And we found a list from mentalfloss.com, the most popular TV shows set in each state. And, so we've got 50 states and 50 shows. And I thought we could just work our way through each one slowly. Just kidding.
One at a time.
One at a time. And then say whether or not we like the show, whether or not we know
our
about
experiences.
It, things like that. Yeah. But no, this is an interesting list, don't you think, Jordan?
Yeah. Most important to us, obviously, is that home improvement is listed in Michigan. So that's already like a reputable map to me. I mean,
yeah, and there are some we talked about maybe like doing some guesswork and stuff, but it would have been pretty hard. I guess we can kind of highlight maybe the big ones. Some of them relate to our last episode we talked about with our top 5 shows, which you should definitely listen to. It was really an interesting segment and certainly didn't go on longer than it should have. So we have Seinfeld as the New York show. Sopranos as the New Jersey show. What else we got? We got The Office in Pennsylvania, Cheers in Massachusetts,
the Brady Bunch in California, Smallville in Kansas.
Yeah, I don't think anyone needs to talk about
Everyone is really waiting on pins and needles to see what would be in Kansas. So
I remember when you watched Smallville when we were in high school, and I knew it was bad every time you had it on, but you just didn't. Or maybe you did, but you just didn't care.
I always liked the superhero stuff. But also, in college, my roommate and I binged like 5 seasons during finals because we didn't have anything else to do.
Yeah.
Or perhaps we could have had other things to do, but we chose to watch Smallville for some reason.
Right, yeah, you could have been studying.
Yeah, the third roommate did not join in on that.
Well, I side with him. We got Frasier in Washington, Walker, Texas Ranger in Texas, Golden Girls in Florida. That's fantastic. Do you notice any really stupid ones on here?
I find it curious that the Virginian is in Wyoming.
I don't know what the Virginian is.
I don't know what it is.
There are shows I've never heard of, i.e. Buckskin is in... What state is that?
Montana.
My Secret Identity is in
North Dakota.
I
Yeah,
don't
I've never
know
heard of
what
that one.
is.
The Young Riders in Nebraska.
Breaking Bad in New Mexico, that makes sense. What else?
South Park in Colorado makes sense.
Army Wives in South Carolina is disappointing. If you live in South Carolina and Army Wives is the best shit that's been set there, then you're in trouble. What else we got?
Hawaii Five-0 is a little bit too on the nose for me.
I don't even see that on the map. Where
It's at the very bottom, just like every other.
Oh, and then Northern Exposure. Yeah. Here's Happy Days, Wisconsin. Married with Children, Illinois. Parks and Rec, Indiana. Family Ties, Ohio. That's kind of the Midwest.
Murder, She Wrote in Maine, which I thought was curious. I didn't know that was in Maine.
I had no idea that was set there, but it makes sense now.
Sure, that
completely makes sense. Everything is starting to
a lot of loose ends are tied up for me now.
Yeah, I've often wondered. What else we got? Bonanza in Nevada.
Nashville in Tennessee, that makes sense too.
Definitely.
I can't see what's in West Virginia here. What's this? Hawkins? You know what that is?
Not
a big Hawkins fan?
Nah, I don't know. Sadie Hawkins, maybe.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not familiar with Hawkins, and I just looked it up, and it's not getting me. It's not getting me what I want. But yeah, I like maps like this. This is like a 538 sort of sitch. I like these kind of infographics because it means that we don't have to read as much, which is good. Any changes you would make on this?
No, not really. I mean, there's on this page, and we'll share this page in our show notes because everyone is dying to see this webpage. There's
more interesting to see it than hear about it.
Absolutely, but there's two different maps, and we chose the one that we liked better. So you can kind of compare and contrast the first. The first map had Freaks and Geeks in Michigan, and that's really where it went wrong.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, Freaks and Geeks. That's
over Home Improvement.
People,
come on.
Well, Freaks and Geeks got canceled after like 2 years. So I mean, people like Freaks and Geeks because it's like the first early. It's like early Judd Apatow before he, started doing like movies and Knocked Up and stuff. So people really like it. But it only went 2 years, whereas Home Improvement went like 10. But people, in hindsight, don't love Home Improvement for a variety of reasons. And this week's episode is
perhaps the top reason why?
Perhaps, maybe, yeah, it's indicative of that. But yeah, we'll share this in our show notes. It's an interesting one, and there are a couple variations on it, so you can look at it and see which one you agree with more. But the one we're talking about, this is, whose version did we say? This is the Andrew Shears version. And this is the better of the two. It's interesting to see. It's also kind of aesthetically appealing as well, and kind of related to not aesthetics so much as just general appeal. Jordan, we're about to embark into our final bit of wisdom for the Tim Allen text. I'm not really here. Before I launch into it, I was just kind of hoping you could maybe give me a walkthrough of your memories of this segment in this text. Like, what stands out to you, or what are you going to miss the most?
I'm just going to miss the stream of consciousness that was obviously written down here. And, it really covered a variety of different life events, whether it be the thoughts of physics in the universe to... I'm trying to think of the more applicable ones that, were very... something we could have used in daily life, but it certainly was an eclectic collection that I think everyone will kind of miss hearing a little bit more about.
Beautifully said, Jordan. Thank you.
Sure.
So, with that in mind, go ahead and cue those grunts for me one final time.
Sure, it's all the same to me. Oh, no.
Now it's time for Bits of Wisdom.
This week's bit of wisdom comes from the Tim Allen text, I'm not really here. The chapter is entitled 12. Still, I'm upset. I wasted a whole weekend. Or did I? My anger fades quickly as I realize that it doesn't really matter, since I no longer need the hood ornament to make me happy. And that's the point, isn't it? Ego, spirit, waves and particles. As the saying goes, once you've used your finger to point at the moon, and you see the moon, in this case, happiness, and the genuine possibility of more, you no longer need the finger. My life, and all my reading, were the finger. Happiness is the moon. And all I have to do, since the world, and accept it the way it really is. With that, I throw the ornament in the trash. Spot walks up and rubs against my leg. I squat down and scratch her behind the ears. It was really awful, wasn't it, girl? Oh well, that's the way it is. That's life, right? Spot cocks her head to one side and looks at me as if she's just come to some sort of critical decision. On her way out, I swear I hear her mumble in a surprisingly wise voice. I could have told you that 2 days ago. This has been your bit of wisdom.
Wow.
And if that didn't make sense to while you were hearing it, it made even less sense as I read it. So,
well, I was thinking that kind of pulled together all the different stuff I was talking about. It had a little bit of the existential moon talk, and then some very applicable life advice. So,
yeah, and then like
it just seemed almost right.
Obviously, the very the part where the dog is like talking to him. I mean, that's like everybody has had that kind of experience.
Everyone.
So that's it, and I hope that everyone's learned. I hope that you guys have learned as much hearing it as I have reading it, and there are some recommended texts at the end, which feel free to look at on your own time. But yeah, quantum physics, dogs, hood ornaments, Tail Man, Tool Man. It's just it's just been a heck of a ride, and I've just been so happy to share it with all of us. And I'm ready to put this book back up on the shelf and perhaps never crack it again. But as I said last week, there will be a variation on the Wisdom coming in a few weeks, perhaps a month or so. So in the meantime, I'm just kind of soaking the first two texts, and then we'll return to it in a month or so. So thank you for listening to my wisdoms over the last little bit. So Jordan, with that in mind, what are we doing this week?
We are covering episode 33, Where There's a Will, There's a Way. So get excited for that. This episode was written by Howard J. Morris, and the other episode that he wrote in the series is Groin Pains. So he really likes to focus on Tim getting older and being old. Episode aired November 18th, 1992. I don't believe we have any plot keywords, which means we get to come up with them if we want.
Do we want? Oh, we want. I'll start. Death.
Will seems too obvious to me, so I'm gonna go with
because it's in the title.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Godzilla.
Oh, all right. Let's say fan club.
Ooh, nice. Log cabin.
Steak knife.
I was gonna say Kasaki steak knives. Lumberjacks.
All right, last one. Paco.
That was a good last one. I will go ahead and read the plot synopsis by Tony Topola. We've got a short one, and usually a short one means a not great episode, so I guess that's indicative of what we're about to encounter. So, at home, Jill has been trying to get Tim to see a lawyer with her in order to update their will. Tim finally agrees to do it, which I don't know that he does. In tool time, Al has been building a cabin for 4.5 months without any power tools. Naturally, it's Tim's opinion that Al needs, more power. He then demonstrates log cutting with a dangerously powerful Binford chainsaw nicknamed the Widowmaker.
Yeah, and Jordan, I wanted to highlight some trivia this week, and this is, you may want to listen up because this is something that is, I didn't know it coming in, so trivia. The title of the episode is Where There's a Will, There's a Way. Trivia, the title is based on the common expression, where there's a will, there's a way. So thank you IMDb for making that known.
Ooh, that clears that up. I was wondering where they got that from.
I was like, what is this? What are they talking about? Is this from a song or is this like a pop culture thing? But no, it's from the common expression. So that's really good.
They should say the not so common expression.
Yeah, shouldn't it? Well, we can go ahead and change it.
All right, yeah,
let's get things started. So we open with Tim on the couch, and this is something we haven't seen before, a kind of strange bouncing home improvement graphic. Did you notice that?
Yeah, in the bottom right-hand corner. They're really stepping it up with their graphic game.
Yeah, last week we had a tidal wave after a reference to surfing or something, and this week we get this. So someone at the studio is really working hard to do that. So I was hoping that would replace the kind of long intro segment. It does not. So we're just doubling up. Tim's watching football, just kind of hanging out by himself. The boys are wrestling. some good stock footage of a football game that they show really briefly. I always get a kick out of that when you just like it's just like a game being played.
It looked like two teams were wearing white jerseys against each other, so it was very confusing
it's
to
the
me.
Wolverines versus the Wolverines. He's supposedly watching Michigan football, which I guess that you said the episode came out in November, so at least that syncs up in terms of like the time of year. The boys are wrestling again, and Jill wants
sumo wrestling.
Sumo wrestling. Jill wants Tim to finish the will, but Tim he's not interested in it. And they have kind of a long back and forth, one of many long back and forths in this episode. I don't know that was there much more to the opening scene? I mean, it sets up the entire episode, so it's kind of a good cold open in that regard, but there's not really much going on. He's just kind of fighting. You can see immediately that he's not interested in kind of doing this will.
Yeah, and Jill, calls him out. She says that you are scared, and she's gonna make an appointment for them to do it anyways. So that's kind of how that opening scene ends.
They also note, and this kind of seems strange to me, that so they like started a lot of wills and not finished them. And there was one where they said, in the event that we have kids. So like that means that they did a will like as soon as they got married. And is that strange? Does that strike you as strange? Do you have a will?
I guess it depends. Unless, because normally, like, if, one of them were to die, just the other spousal partner would get everything. So I don't know if Tim just doesn't want her to get certain things, or Jill doesn't want him to get certain things.
That would make for such a much better episode if that were the case. Like Tim didn't want her to have like a certain item that he had, but instead. So I don't know. Because the implication there is that they did a will before they had kids. Brad's 12, they're like 37, so they did a will when they were about 25. I don't know. I guess they're just setting up a joke and not really thinking about what the the implications of
that
it.
That doesn't sound like the Home Improvement
Shocking.
writers.
So then we see the opening segment, and then Jordan, what happens after that?
Yeah, so we're gonna go outside now. Randy, this is Godzilla that we mentioned earlier. Randy sets Godzilla at the end of one plank.
Godzilla!
And Brad sends it launching. He jumps on the other side of the plank. There's a box in the middle, so you got the natural seesaw, fulcrum, launch, catapult kind of thing going on there.
A little too close to pulleys for my taste.
I was going to say, there's a lot of physics going on in the...
Well, Tim loves physics. Anybody that's listened to listen to me talk about I'm Not Really Here, it's a definite interest of his. I liked the music as they opened up. Like, they had it, like, it was like a extreme close-up on the Godzilla thing. It was kind of like a...
Dun, dun.
Dun, dun, which was maybe the one of the better parts of the episode. I have some beef with the actual physics here, but I guess we can get to that at the end of the scene. So continue on.
I was going to say the next thing that we do is Mark walks outside, and they ask if Mark wants to be Rocket Man. So they replace Godzilla with Mark and climb up into the tree, and this time they're both going to jump down and try to launch him. I don't think he would go very far here.
I don't think he would move at all, because they're like hanging from a tree branch that they both climb up on the tree branch on one side of it's essentially a teeter-totter, right?
Yeah.
And then Mark's on the other end, but they're no more than 6 inches, elevated, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have much leverage. My guess is that either the board would just like fall off or break in half or something like that.
Yeah, but there is the idea that like as soon as they let go, like Mark's gonna fly through the air, which I maybe would have liked to have seen. Mark is the Rocket Man, as they say. But Jill, she catches them just in time, and she gets Mark out of there, and she tells the boys that they have to just hang.
Basically, I don't know what the idea is there. Maybe they're going to break the branch and hurt themselves.
Hope so.
That's what I see happening.
That's what Jill hopes for.
Mark's disappointed, though. He wanted to play with them. So he doesn't quite see what's going on.
Mark's a fool.
So Mark and Jill go inside, and Tim just got home. He is in a chipper mood because he just got a physical, and he is fitter than a Greek god.
Baklava.
Baklava is the god that apparently he's modeled after. Jill is working on the will. That's what she is like obsessed with right now. So she'll be doing that the rest of this episode. Tim thought that they wouldn't have to continue this because he is healthy, so we don't have to worry about him dying. I don't think he really understands what a will is for. But
he thinks like it's like immediate death or something. Like if they need to, because as soon as he finds out he's healthy, and like he's kind of he comes home and he sort of brags about his health. He says that like they want to put his physical like up on the wall or something. That like it's all like because that he passed, like it's all good. Like they don't need to worry about it. But Jill continues to push, and Tim he's like pretty sensitive about it. But in the whole episode, he's sensitive about it. But instead of letting up, Jill just continues to push it and kind of force his hand. Seems like there would be a better way to handle this.
But instead she, like you said, she just pushes it. She starts going through like different items in the will to try to get him into this conversation. So she starts talking about like what would happen to the tools, and she's going to give the tools to somebody in particular that Tim doesn't agree with, and he says, no, the tools are going to be buried with me like he's some sort of Egyptian mummy. And then Jill says he's going to be cremated. And
here's
that really puts him in a tizzy.
The thing is, though, about this whole thing with like Jill and Tim is that, okay, like I understand that if you have like 3 kids, then yeah, you do need to set up a will or you need to have some kind of a plan. But Jill is like kind of acting like the whole thing is sort of a joke to Tim. Like she's like razzing him about it when it's very obvious from like the opening seconds of this episode that he does not like he is bothered by it, right? So there's like a more tactful way to handle this. She's like talking about like giving the kids to his brother and stuff, and like how she's gonna have him cremated, but that's not funny. Like if you're like sincerely afraid of dying, as Tim is for valid reasons at the end of this episode, like that's not a good way to go about it.
Yeah, and I guess the strange thing is that we know Jill as like being very attuned to his needs.
Yeah, she's
and
usually
sensitive.
so tactful. Yeah.
That it doesn't make a whole ton of sense. Like she probably knows what's going on here.
She definitely, she 100% should know what's going on. She should get this, and we'll talk about that later on. But
maybe she's so busy with her new job that she's just forgotten.
She's razzing him like a fraternity brother the whole episode. It's just like I don't know.
Well, they did go to college together, so
that's true. Yeah, and he was swinging from the tree branches outside of Sangren. So. All right, so we head to tool time for the first time in this episode, and this was the only part of the episode that I was sort of into, and that's that Al bought land near Houghton Lake. That was exciting.
I would have never guessed how much Houghton Lake would be mentioned on this podcast.
I know, yeah. My parents live there. Your wife's parents live there. We spend a lot of time up there, so that was a nice local touch, and that's probably my favorite part about Home Improvement is when they bring up like real life things that are applicable to me. It kind of makes episodes like this slightly more tolerable. But yeah, Al bought land near Houghton Lake, and he is building a log cabin. But he's doing it kind of the old-fashioned way, I guess. So that means no. So he's been working on it for 4.5 months with just like old-fashioned way, like no power tools. Is that?
He's basically just using an axe and stacking the logs on top of one another.
I kind of feel like maybe like 14.5 months. Like it would really take a long time to do anything.
It's going to be a very small log cabin.
Yeah, I mean, based on Al's apartment, I think he should have used that money that he spent on the log cabin to like just buy a 1-bedroom place, like upgrade your own place before you're looking for a log cabin and stuff. I don't know.
That's not what he prioritizes here.
Well, he's also sleeping on a hammock, so maybe he should talk to you for financial advice. You noted in a recent episode that people don't come to you for.
Let's just say he wouldn't be the first one. No, and then they do the show and tell picture time that we've had.
They love this. It's
5 times maybe.
Oh my gosh, this episode we see it a couple times, and this season it's just so much of this like visual gag, and I think maybe the time that he did the indie joke was kind of funny, where it's like the pyramids of Egypt, indie, whatever, but. Yeah, it's tired, and he does the thing. So in this, he does it with it's the Binford 8200. Because Tim thinks Al should use power tools. Like he scoffs at the idea of doing it the natural way because presumably Tim couldn't do it the natural way. So they do this thing where they keep showing a photo of the Binford 8200, and it's like the sound of the saw. And it's so annoying. It's one of my least favorite things I think they've ever done on an episode, and the audience is loving it.
Yeah, the audience loves a lot of things about this episode. Also, before this, like, he holds up a picture of Al's pioneering roots, which is Sal Borland, which is like a woman in 18th century garb, but it has Al's face on it. So
I was going to ask you, you know how people and I mean, you love a good theme park. You know how people like go to these places and they get photos taken in like I don't know, like Western, early American kind of gear. Have you ever done that? Get like the old timey photos where like you're wearing like like stirrups and you got a cowboy hat on, things like that.
Well, I did wear cowboy boots when I was younger for some reason, which doesn't really fit my persona, but I had them on all the time. So, but I don't remember like going to a place and putting on stuff. I didn't even
Never
go
been to
like
one of those old timey West places and got like your photos taken. Like,
I don't think so necessarily. I remember. I think in like middle school we went to Greenfield Village or something. I didn't even go to that. So
wow. You thought you were above it?
I guess so. I didn't want to go.
I have had photos taken like this before. And,
can we get a copy of them?
I don't know. I don't have anything here, but I'll if my parents come across something. But I get a real kick out of those things. I don't know. Like I just think I don't think it's funny.
Sheriff Adam.
Yeah, it's just I like it when people have like a full family one and they have it kind of proudly
displayed over the mantle.
Yeah, in their house. So yeah, that's kind of what that reminded me of. And yeah, the Benford 8200 joke continues. Every time Al's about to say something, Tim holds up the photo and the saw. It's like the and I don't know your familiarity with Austin Powers, but it's like the Scotty don't joke from probably the first one where like every time. What's that guy's name? I don't know. Every time
Dr. Evil, are you talking about?
Dr. Evil, but I was trying to think of the actor's name. Every time Seth Green like is about to say something, Dr. Evil will be like Scotty don't.
Yeah,
and like it's that whole joke, which is not my kind of humor. It's very annoying and it goes on far too long, and kind of it's sort of like this episode. It's annoying and it goes on too long. But we transition in the next scene.
Yep, and next scene is at home. The boys are tossing around. I don't remember if it was like a football or something.
Football, yeah. And I was thinking, look who can all of a sudden catch a football.
He can't hold on to one, but he can catch one. Remember?
He's got fumbling issues, so he can catch it fine. But once he starts running with it, it's just like it's been sprayed with Crisco or something.
Yeah. Well, that's not the only question I have about this scene, because Mark asks what a will is, and Brad is the one that knows. Which kind of surprises me that really either of them would know, but Brad is the one who has the knowledge about the will.
They're very cavalier with Brad and Randy. It's so hard. Brad and Randy are very cavalier with death in this one. Like they know what a will is, and then they're like, yeah, well, when mom and dad die, I get the hot rod. Like when I was a young boy, I feel like my greatest fear would have been like my parents dying and then me being on my own.
Yeah, I would have definitely been more like Mark in this episode. Yeah,
I probably still would be like Mark. And they're just like, when dad dies, I want his hot rod. And they like start fighting over it, and then Randy wants the speakers and stuff. But yeah, they don't speak with much reverence about their parents. At all.
Yeah, and Tim comes out, and they kind of mentioned as such to him. They ask, like, who's going to get the hot rod? And he is not happy with the way that they're treating his death.
He shouldn't be happy about it. They're being a-holes.
Yeah, and so he sends them inside. Mark is hiding in a tree, which Tim does not know about. And Wilson
we don't know about it until later. Until that stupid television reveal that they do, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, so Wilson makes a mallard noise, and this will be our first clip of the show.
That you, Wilson?
Yes, indeedy, good neighbor. Actually, what you heard was Anas platyrhynchus, more commonly known as the mallard.
Wilson, Jill and I are working on our will, and it's really getting to me.
Actually, Tim, it's quite appropriate that you're contemplating death.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, you see, when you rearrange the letters of your name, Tim Taylor, it spells the word mortality.
Oh, I hate to hear stuff like that, Wilson.
Does that disturb you, Tim?
Not as much as the fact that you know that.
Now, Jill Taylor, on the other hand, would be Jolly Trail.
There's been no jolly trail over here. We've been arguing about that will. I hate wills. I wonder who started them. Where'd they come from?
Well, Tim, I'm sure you could trace it back to some chiseled drawing on the cave wall of Cro-Magnon Man.
Ding, 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 ding. I grog. Ding, 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 ding. Leave my wheel. Ding, 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 ding. To Grog Jr. ding, ding. And to my loving wife, ding, 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 ding. Whose shrill cry scares the mastodon, ding, 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 ding. I leave this stick.
You see, Tim, wills are the natural outgrowth of our mortality consciousness.
Huh?
I'm just saying the human being is the only animal from an early age that realizes that it's going to die.
It may know it's going to die, but it doesn't know when.
Oh, I wouldn't worry, neighbor. You probably have 50 more good years.
Or it could die tomorrow.
All right, so this scene is interesting for a few reasons. One, the fact that Wilson knows all these anagrams for the Taylor family so quickly. So obviously he's thought about this, because you and I both tried to put our names into anagrams, and it was a bit difficult to do it manually, so we just put it into a computer program. We've got a couple of interesting results, I guess.
Yeah, I figured I'd earned the right to sort of relax after the joke about the milkman last week and like that whole kind of scenario that I
worked really hard.
through. I mean, that was hard. So I spent a lot of brain power on that. So don't be surprised if I take the easy way out for the next month or so on the podcast. So yeah, we used an anagram generator. I have two. How many do you have?
I've got. I guess I'll do 3.
Yeah, just do 2 or 3. All right. I know you're excited.
I've got
about
like 40. Yeah.
I have. I wrote down 30 or so. My first one is a made dits.
Oh.
Mine aren't very good. You throw a Z in there, you're in trouble.
Yeah, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
I've got mine. This one sounds like something like an old Southern grandpa would say or something. It's jar old Sonny. Like he's requesting a jar. Jar old Sonny.
Jar old Sonny, you son of
That's exactly what I imagine every Southern grandpa to sound like.
Boy, get rid of that. I only have one more. Okay. Dead ma zit. Pretty gross.
Pretty gross.
Mine.
I have a second one that has jar at the start, and this one's got a little bit of Latin flair. Jar dos nylon.
See. Very good.
And the last one is snarl Don Joy.
So you have good ones. I didn't even have. These
you would call those good?
I mean, mine didn't really have real words in any of them. These were the ones that could form, something coherent. So yeah, those are pretty good. What does he say? He says that Jill's is Jolly Trail and Tim Taylor is Mortality, which is pretty good.
Do you think like somebody was messing around with anagrams with this episode, and that was the whole like idea for the episode, just because Tim Taylor turned into Mortality?
Then this could have been like the chain letter episode, like he just gets really concerned about a bad sign from the universe, which he's definitely interested in. What is Wilson's big takeaway here?
Yeah, I mean,
it's a weird scene. It ends weird, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he talks about that wills are kind of the natural realization from humans that at some point they're gonna die, and that they're like the only animal that really knows that while they're living. So
yeah,
I guess it doesn't really give comfort to anything.
No, because especially at the end, he's like, Tim is like struggling with it, and Wilson said, "Oh, you'll be fine. You'll probably live another 50 years." Then Tim says, "Yeah, but I could die tomorrow."
And then he doesn't say anything,
and then he just walks away. That's it. So yeah, it's strange in that there's no solace taken. There's like no. I think Wilson makes a mallard noise, which is like supposed to be funny, which is kind of supposed to ease the tension. It doesn't really do it. It's a pretty dark, pessimistic fence segment, and then we do the terrible thing that TV shows do, especially TV shows like this. The slow pan up, and it's Mark is just hiding in the tree, cowering, and guess what? He heard the conversation, and now he knows his dad is gonna die. We've seen them do this before with Mark, where he like kind of like ascends up from the window. I remember in an early episode. It's never good. It never looks good.
Wasn't he like scared last time or something? Like he did something wrong with the tool.
Oh yeah, he broke a tool or something, and then he hides it in the washing machine like a like a bona fide genius.
Yeah.
So we transition. Next scene, we're in the garage, and it's 4:30 in the morning, and Tim's working on the hot rod. And, he wakes Jill up, and
He's
comes
making
in.
a lot of noise.
Making a lot of noise. It's 4:30 in the morning. And Jill comes in, she's like, "Are you worried about the will?" It's like, yeah, you know that he is. Like, what's
Why are we having this
do you
conversation?
think? Like, and then it's just more of the same, really.
Yeah, he's just still being, he's irrational, but he has a reason why he's irrational, I guess. I don't know.
They should have gotten to that reason earlier, and it
Yeah.
would have made the whole episode a little bit better. But this is the first scene where it's like, where Jill's like, "Is it because of your dad?"
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I guess does he say yes, or does he just kind of push the question off? I don't necessarily recall,
Yeah, we don't kind of get the whole conversation yet.
Yeah,
So
but we do get the idea that his dad has something to do with it.
right.
It's a short scene. There are a lot of scenes in this episode that are quick, and it's not in a good way. Where it's
It's not
quick,
a lot of things are happening. It's like the
Yeah.
same thing is happening.
Yeah, over to so next scene, tool time. This is gosh.
This is your favorite scene, it sounds like.
I-
Do you want me to talk about it for you?
I'm speechless. It's just so bad. No, I'll try. You can jump in.
Okay.
All right, so it's tool time, and Al walks in.
You sound so mad.
It's so stupid. It's just like it's
tool time.
It's an okay idea that is just so dumb. Al walks in and he gets a huge set of applause, which actually sounded pretty regular because I think Al kind of always gets a lot of applause. But Tim notes you got some friends in the audience, and then Al says, "Yes, it's the Al Borland fan club." Camera pans to the crowd.
Looks
and
a little bit like a cult to me.
Everyone's wearing flannel, and some of them have beards, and guess what? There's even a little person out there. So they're going for some cheap humor in that regard. And I had a question. Do you think that this is the actual studio audience, which we know they often use for tool time, or are these like cast actors in a role?
Well, they didn't put them on IMDb, but I feel like they picked certain people too. They put out like a request for certain people.
Do you
to show
think
up.
that they purposely asked for a little person to be in the audience?
I do not know. I didn't even notice that actually. There was so much flannel, it all just kind of.
Well, I'm just
blended
wondering,
into me.
are they going for cheap humor, or was it just like? Because they don't dwell on it, like they don't ask the person to come down or whatever. But I'm just wondering, was that a planned move to have are they trying to go with a variety of people, so they chose this little person and kind of going for a cheap laugh, or was it just kind of something that happened?
They did have kind of a variety of people there. I was surprised that they didn't have any women in the group because we find so often that women love Al.
Yeah. I guess I'm gonna assume that it was just sort of random, because if they wanted to try it, and I don't know, if they wanted to try to get humor from the fact that there is a small person, a little person in the crowd, then they probably would have drawn more attention to it.
Yeah, they would have done something else about it.
So I'm glad they didn't, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
because that would have made this episode even worse. Because it's just cheap, lame, not funny humor.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the Al Borland fan club, and it's an okay thing to try. I get why they're doing it, but it's just not funny. And they're doing the Binford 8200 comes out, and Tim is
Can we say that they have these special lumberjacks on the show, Red and Phil, but really all they do is bring out the chainsaw on a rolly cart, and then they bring out the log. That's all they do.
I didn't even do their bios, because these guys are
no, they're on the screen for 10 seconds.
Yeah,
so it's very strange that they would have a guest on the show to not really do anything.
They don't even have a joke.
No.
Yeah. So those guys come out and they deliver the saw. It's the Binford 8200 that we saw earlier in the visual gag.
The Widowmaker.
The Widowmaker, Al calls it. And Tim is kind of suddenly afraid of this thing, as if he's never seen a saw before or worked with one. He's afraid it's going to kill him, because he's already questioning his own mortality, things like that. So Tim is trying to get Al to use it, and he doesn't, Al's not going to. And the Al Borland fan club comes to his aid, and they say, "I don't think so, Tim." Tim says that he will fire Al, which, again, I don't think he can, but we hear that quite a bit. And just as Tim is about to, he's saying, if tip to people out there with the TV show, if you have an assistant, make him do the scary stuff, and then Tim hits his head on a log that we see coming a mile away. It makes a sound of like two coconuts hitting together, and that is the end of the scene. And that's it for the Widowmaker. So a really interesting plot thread just suddenly dropped. So
yeah, very very strange scene. Pretty much all the way around. Really.
Yeah, it's going for laughs, and yeah,
it doesn't really get any. That's for sure.
But what we get next is Tim's awake again in the middle of the night, and he is watching an infomercial for the Kasaki steak knife, and it can cut through like a lead pipe or something.
Lead pipe. It cuts through like a tree trunk later. It's pretty impressive.
Have you ever bought anything from an infomercial?
I was gonna ask you that. I don't know if I've done it from like an infomercial on TV. I don't know if I mentioned this before on the podcast or not, but I used to, like, once in a while I would get like a Nickelodeon magazine when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I ordered this. I don't know if I got it for ordering the magazine or if I had to actually order this separately, but for some reason I got this Nickelodeon telephone, which was like purple and all funky. And then you could change the ringer with this little dial to different things besides like a regular ring. So it had like a cow mooing.
I feel like we have talked about this before.
Yeah,
so
that's really,
does sound familiar.
That's really the only thing I've ever bought like that. But
I don't think I ever purchased anything from an infomercial because I would have been like too young when they were popular. But I definitely, they were very prevalent, especially like in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah.
I remember...
What were your favorites?
I
liked the ShamWow guy. I thought he was pretty crazy.
Yeah, he does hit his wife. So I
didn't not like him in that way.
Hopefully you're not condoning that. But,
no.
I liked Billy Mays here.
Billy.
He might have passed away even. So
he did, unfortunately.
We are going down a dark corridor here. No, I used to get
Do you
a kick out of
remember
this.
a couple years ago, we had that white elephant and there was a shake weight in there?
You and I did?
We did it with a bunch of different people at that restaurant in Flint.
No. I don't remember that. Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
There's
pictures of us together.
Shake weight is a good one. I don't remember this situation you speak of, but shake weight. I remember like there was like this, a blender that you could, basically,
Slap chop?
Slap chop. Yeah, slap chop. What I like about the infomercials is like, I like it when they kind of overwrite them, or it's like a scenario, because like in this one, there was like a whole bunch of people like that were just kind of coming. It was as if they were coming downstairs from like for breakfast or something, and there was just this this production going on, and they were making a breakfast with the shake weight, and there was this dude that was like hungover supposedly named Vernon. I remember it very vividly, and like they were gonna make him like a breakfast to kind of aid his hangover with the slap chop. I like it when there's some production in it.
Yeah, well, you gotta come up with a scenario. Or
I remember my sister buying a Pure Moods CD off the television. Do you remember Pure Moods?
No, not really. It sounds was it relaxing or something? Like
yeah, it did have the X-Files theme song on it, which I thought was cool. But yeah,
not quite relaxing. I guess it had a different variety.
Well, the X-Files
of moods.
theme song is kind of
creepy.
It's only because we associate it with X-Files. But
well, that's
in and of itself, it is it's a nice.
So, like, if you gave it to people who have never heard of X-Files, then yeah, maybe it'd be all right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What else? I'm trying to think. There was another thing. I just remember a lot of like CDs being sold, like Pure 90s or things like that. But,
and it's always they always had the same formula. Like, we'll give you 2 free if you pay for separate shipping and handling.
Order in the next 10 minutes, and we'll throw in another one, or you'll get the like in this, it's like the leather carrying case with it, or you'll get a small flashlight that's really powerful. But the shipping and handling is like just as much as the actual cost of the unit, and it's in the small lettering at the bottom.
Yeah.
So the Kasaki steak knife, that was probably the best part of the episode. So Tim, he's about to buy it.
He darn near does it. I think he does it.
Maybe he does.
He does do it.
Mark comes down.
He can't sleep either.
He can't sleep because he was hanging out in the tree, and he says, Daddy, I'm gonna die. And
luckily, Jill comes down at this point, because who knows what Tim's gonna say.
Yeah, Tim doesn't really know how to handle the whole thing. And then Mark also says, that are you gonna die? Your dad died when you were a kid, and like finally we figure out why Tim's afraid, and it has to be because like stupid Mark brings it up. Like God forbid they introduce this early on in the episode so that the whole thing has some weight to it. But no, we figure out like minute 20 of 23 that Tim's afraid because his dad died when he was young, which is real. Like that's real life. I think I read online that like Tim's dad did die, or maybe in the first book that Tim's dad did die when he was about 40. So it's autobiographical. So it's something that's kind of personal to him. But yeah, so Tim, we figure out that Tim has like a deep-seated fear of dying because his father died when he was like 40, and now he kind of assumes that could be the same for him. Right. Mm-hmm. What you want to pick up on this, or what? Anything I'm missing?
Yeah, I mean, so Jill comes down. They talk a little bit more about the will, and like every responsible adult has to do it. So that's how she kind of explains that to Mark, and Mark falls asleep. And I do think that this part of the scene where Tim is kind of fleshing out his fear and why, I think it's pretty good acting here. I think, like you said,
he's play a clip here, right?
Yeah, so we're gonna play a clip, and I think he does draw on the fact that it is autobiographical. So we'll play the clip.
Are you okay?
Yeah,
What are you thinking about?
the car.
Hot rod?
1957 Ford Fairlane 500 Skyliner. It was two-tone, deep emerald green and ivory.
Why are you thinking about that?
That was that was a car that Dad and my brothers, we used to goof around with on Saturdays. And God, it was a hardtop convertible. Those are tough to get. You can't find them. Boy, that was a great car. And then he died. Uncle Harry took the car and he sold it. We never seen it again. And that was the best thing I ever remember about my dad.
Honey, isn't that the perfect reason for you to sign a will?
Oh, that would be the perfect reason, sure.
Then why don't you sign it?
Dad was only 3 years older than I am now when he died. And he had all boys, and I have all boys. And he built a Ford in the garage, and I got a Ford in the garage, and I don't want my kids growing up without their dad, and I kind of figured that if I sign the will, it means I'm going to die, and I know.
But you know that's not true. Besides, there's one big difference between you and your father.
What's that?
His car worked.
I miss my dad an awful lot, honey.
Yeah, so like I said, I think this is probably the best scene of the episode as far as acting goes. Tim relays the story about his father's car and his father passing away when he was almost the same age as Tim, and how the one significant memory that stuck with him and all of his brothers was this car, and Uncle Harry took the car and sold it. So that Jill uses that as like the reason that Tim should sign the will, so that they keep things like that, I guess, to remember their dad by. And
yeah, I really feel like Tim he's pretty kind of acting the hell out of this scene. It's really good acting. It's always really strange to see, and you sometimes forget that Tim Allen kind of has the ability to sort of do this, because he's essentially on his own. He's like standing in a doorway, looking out into the garage, kind of delivering a monologue about the car and his father, and he there's some stuttering and stuff, and it's really believable. And this brought up a lot of questions in my mind, but it kind of actually, most of all, it sort of just made me frustrated, because I feel like this episode is one of the finer examples of Home Improvement trying to sort of have it both ways, or have their cake and eat it too, where if they were to have played this straight for 23 minutes, and in the beginning, you set up that his father passed away, and have it like play serious and somber, kind of like a For Whom the Bell Tolls, it would have been such a better episode. But instead, we have all these dumb jokes and like Tim handling the Widowmaker, hitting his head on the log, or the stuff that's going to come about like remarrying and those jokes. Like it just doesn't work together. But if they would have just played it serious, it would have been a really poignant, good episode, because this is a really poignant, good scene, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's just, like you said, that's not the way they decided to go with it, and instead, like, it's just this one scene in this 22-minute episode that
and they
really is underwhelming.
They save it for the last. It's like it's a big reveal or something, and it just doesn't work. They give us like 30 seconds of actually like hard hitting kind of like realistic stuff, and it's just, to get there, we just go through like a bunch of dumb jokes and like fighting, and I don't know, just it's just so unnecessary when they could have done so much more with this. This could have been fleshed out over, this could have been a 5-10 minute scene in a couple different locations and settings, and it would have been so much better. But it's a sitcom, so they want to try to inject the comedy, and it just doesn't really work here. Like, it's not a funny thing, so the fact that they're trying to make it funny, it just doesn't work, and you end up getting stupid gags where they're holding up saws and sound effects and stuff. And yeah, I think it's a missed opportunity.
It'll be interesting to see going forward, because really, besides this episode, the only other opportunity that we've had for some sort of realism like this was For Whom the Bell Tolls, and that they handled that a lot better. So we'll see, like, going forward, if they kind of...
And that was because they, like, weren't trying to... There wasn't, like, fart jokes in it, Like, they're not trying for... They weren't going for cheap humor there. But, I don't know. It's just... It's really interesting. And also, a couple more questions, I guess I have. How is this just now being brought up? We're in episode, what is this, 33, 34 of them? Like, they're just now bringing this up. Like, this should have been something that we got episode 4 or 5. Like, this should be something that he's constantly thinking about. I don't know. And then also, with this in mind, why was Jill pushing him so hard? Like,
yeah, she should. I think she knows this. That's know, she knows all about this. So it's kind of strange that it kind of manifested itself this way.
Yeah, why does she make him say it when, like, it's so obvious that it's the case? And, like, why is she, like, making jokes about, like, him being buried with his tools and stuff when it's like it's a real fear, like, genuine fear of his?
Yeah, I don't know. She's got some work to do before she becomes a psychologist. So.
Yeah,
that's what I would say. But yeah,
it's a good scene in a bad episode, essentially.
Yeah, yep. At the end of the scene, you see Tim sign the will. They take Mark up to bed. Jill mocks the infomercial. That's pretty much how it ends, and that's where we kind of ended the clip. So at home the next morning, Mark goes down, and he has made up a will and gives it to Mom and Dad. G.I. Joe is on there, some roller skates. He gives everything to his mom, and then he kind of leaves the scene.
It's a morbid child.
The
writing is on the wall for his goth stage. If he's making himself a will at age 9. And it's like, they kind of try to play it off like it's like a cute thing, but I don't know. It's pretty weird.
It's not something I did when I was younger, but who knows. So yeah, and then they talk a little bit about, like, remarrying. Jill says, like, if I die first, would you remarry? She says he should. And then she asks, what kind of woman would it be? And Tim kind of starts describing a woman that is like Jill, someone that's loving, caring, a good mother, all this kind of stuff. And he's, like, touching her, like rubbing her shoulder while he says this. So it's like he's saying it about her. But at the very end, he says, I want all these things because I want it to be a better marriage than my first one. And he runs off the scene. So...
Yeah, really bookending it on a sweet note.
Yeah, that's love.
Really nice. That's love. There you go. And then there's some bloopers between Tim and Al on Tool Time, and then we roll credits, fade to black. The episode where there's a will, there's a way, and there's a bad episode. If you ask me.
Yeah, you can tell neither of us really enjoyed it. For me, like you said, there was just that, like, one good episode or one good scene. A lot of the other stuff doesn't make a lot of sense. I was really confused. I really thought the way they ended the last episode that they would pick right up where that story left off with Vicki Lewis as Binford's daughter and the producer stuff, but that there was not even a whiff of that anywhere near this episode. So I guess this was a filler that they could have put really anywhere in the season.
It should have come. I just think it should have come. Like I said earlier, it should have come in the first season sometime. Like
when they were.
This is a defining trait of Tim. Apparently, that's like what they're saying. It's something that bothers him. He's afraid of death, or he's afraid he's going to end up like his own father. So it seemed like they're kind of introducing this pretty late. I think everything. My feelings towards the episode were kind of summarized after that scene, but I would just say that they tried to go for humor and then throw in some sentimentality at the end, and they should have just gone for sentimentality or humor. But you really can't have both. Like when you're dealing with something as kind of like hefty as death, or at least you can't on Home Improvement. I just don't think that the writers really have the capacity to do that. So yeah, it's probably one of my least favorites this season. I would say the humor was like the jokes were bad. Like the jokes were just flat out bad, annoying, not funny.
Yeah, it's always frustrating when you have like the idea where it could have been really interesting, where it could have been, because we talked about last season how one of our like favorite episodes of the season was For Whom the Bell Tolls, and we kind of get the idea that this could have been like that, and it was not. So
yeah, I feel like that's a common thing. We see that a lot where there's a good idea, or they're close to something. They weren't that close in this one, but they at least had a good idea, and then they just like wasted on just the Al Borland fan club and like buzzsaw jokes. So I don't know. Yeah, not my favorite, but we'd been on a string of good ones for a while, so it's only natural that we have kind of a descent back down. So yeah, that's all right. You win some, you lose some, and that's Home and Podcast for you, right, pal?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. So I guess we can talk a little bit about social media. If you do want to reach out to us with your thoughts on this episode, we'd love to hear them. You can go ahead and reach out at thehomeandpodcast.com. Email us at homeandpodcast@gmail.com, facebook.com/homeandpodcast, and on Twitter at homeandpodcast.
Yes, Twitter. So there was a poll posted this week, and it is as follows. Who has more sex appeal? So, 7 votes, not a ton, but
we pretty much can say, like, based on that, like the results of this poll, this is what America thinks. It's a good representative sample.
This is a large enough sample size to kind of say that this is the definitive answer. So, who has more sex appeal? 14% said Al, which I said Al, so that means just me. 43% said Tim, and 43% said Ernest Borgnine.
Oh.
So we have a 2-way tie for first, Al a distant second. I'm
starting to think that people aren't taking your poll seriously.
I'm not getting that vibe, but I don't know. How are the Facebook polls?
We can't even do Facebook polls as far as I'm aware. So they're pretty active.
Too bad. So continue to follow us on Twitter at Home and Podcast, posting a lot of things. As Jordan said, support us, rate us on iTunes, things of that nature, and we'll keep the dream alive. All right.
Sounds good to me. Let's dive into the question of the week.
Let's. All right. So after, I would say, considerable delay, I've come up with a question for you, Jordan. This episode was.
Did you come up with it, or did you have to research?
I came up with it via research. This episode was so rotten that we couldn't even find like a tangentially related question. So Jordan, this question comes from an article called 31 Questions to Ask on Your First Date. And we're not on a date. But,
I'd say we're on like our 50th date.
This is our 34th date. All right, so the question is, which would you rather do? Shark dive, bungee jump, or skydive? And I told you were going to not want to do any of them, but you have to answer. So which one would you most want to do?
I've swam with a baby shark before. not a big one, but I guess bungee jump. I don't know.
Quick question. What's the difference between bungee jumping and skydiving?
Well, one, you're like tethered, obviously.
Oh, okay. Is that the one where you like jump off and then you can like come back up? Is that like
you kind of bounce
in Joe Dirt when he jumps off and then he hits his head on the
That's
bridge?
precisely what he's doing.
Okay, all right. So you would say bungee jumping because you're tethered?
I guess so. I have some people down here that have gone skydiving and enjoyed it. I think it'd be very hard to get me out of that plane.
I would choose skydiving. We actually, my girlfriend's mom just went skydiving within the last couple months, relatively close to where we were at the time, and we drove out and like watched her. You could like watch them take off and jump off the plane and come down. It was cool to watch, and she said it was a really like remarkable experience. I would be afraid to do it. I'd be afraid to jump out of the plane, but like I don't know. That would be the one I would probably be the most likely to choose. I don't really have any interest in shark diving. Like I don't need to see sharks or swim with them or anything. And bungee jumping, after seeing that scene in Joe Dirt where he jumps off and then comes back up and hits his head, no thank you. So
yeah,
for those
that's
reasons,
really changed your
skydiving.
life right there. I would say, like, I'm not that strong of a swimmer, so just like...
Or of a person, really,
well,
right?
I'm a much stronger flyer, I just... I flew in on that last episode or 2 episodes ago, so...
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I just, I don't know that... When I swam with, like, a baby shark, it was, like, in this little tank, and the shark was scared of you because you were bigger.
Yeah, I was gonna
than
say,
it.
like, what? That seems, like, almost cruel. Like, they're like, harnessing these baby sharks, and then, like...
No, it wasn't, like, a tiny baby, but it was mostly staying at the bottom of the tank, and then you swam over top of it, and it didn't really come towards you because you were bigger than it. So it wasn't like what actual shark diving would be.
Inhumane, kind of. You're lucky I didn't ask you what is the weirdest scar you have and how did you get it.
Sounds like we're gonna be working our way through this list of first date questions.
Yeah, I'm gonna bookmark this, and let's bookmark this and then stick a fork into this episode. Next week's episode is.
Speaking of forks, it's called Let's Did Lunch.
Oh my gosh! If the title is an indication of the episode's quality, then
we're in trouble.
We may just play a slow motion car accident audio for the 50 minutes next week and just skip the episode because title seems like a real drag. But hey, they're not all going to be winners. But we thank you for joining us, and Jordan, it's been a pleasure to talk to you on this fine morning.
Yeah, as always. Good luck. Have a good weekend, and take care, everybody.
I guess I should say take care as well.